Okay, let's unpack this. We've received a truly stunning, almost unbearable stack of material today.
Mm,
It draws us right into the high-pressure cooker that was Berlin in early 1939.
right on the brink.
Exactly. And this isn't just about, the prelude to the Second World War. It's a forensic deep dive into the almost unbearable psychological pressure facing a foreign journalist, a man we know as Russell.
Indeed. And our mission here is pretty intense. We're tracing the journey of a man who really, just by choosing to stay in Berlin, found himself pulled into these conflicting worlds of espionage, intense political maneuvering, and an extreme moral crisis.
And the sources aren't just giving us historical footnotes, are they?
Not at all. They offer remarkable, granular detail on the professional compromises he was forced to make, alongside the desperate personal commitments that were anchoring him there.
We're talking about a world where survival meant maintaining this elaborate, constantly shifting facade. I mean, keeping your head down meant occasionally writing, nice things about the Nazis.
Whether for your local paper or, as we're about to find out, for Soviet propaganda organs.
But the reality outside his hotel window was a world of escalating violence, disappearances, and the chilling, bureaucratic planning of mass murder.
It's studied not just in survival, but in the slow, grinding necessity of becoming a reluctant, compromised hero.
That's the perfect way to put it.
And the complexity lies right there in that compromise.
Mm.
Russell isn't some wide-eyed idealist. He's a cynical journalist of the left who needs money, who needs cover.
And the very compromises he makes to stay, joining the Soviet intelligence network, getting Gestapo accreditation.
Those become the tools, the very tools that ultimately allow him to save a Jewish family and smuggle out evidence of the regime's greatest atrocities.
So our story opens in this very specific, almost painfully atmospheric setting.
Yes, New Year's Eve, 1938, just turning into 1939. And there's this stark contrast presented in the sources right away about the life Russell is trying to maintain.
Okay, so where do we find him?
We find him taking a stool at a Berlin bar. He's buying himself a traditional German liqueur, a Goldwasser. This is a moment of personal solitude.
And he finds something to read.
He does. A month-old copy of the New York Herald Tribune. And what is he reading in the fading print? His own piece?
A piece on German attitudes to their pets.
Yes, complete with a cute photograph of a schnauzer.
It's almost absurd, isn't it? He is in the capital of a regime that is actively planning the systematic destruction of human life. And he's writing about how Germans treat their dogs.
That juxtaposition perfectly captures his professional exile. It shows the palatable, non-threatening material he's forced to produce just to maintain his press credentials and stay accredited.
But that moment of, let's call it professional absurdity, it gives way to genuine personal loneliness that same night.
It does. He encounters this very solitary Swede, Lars, in the bar. And his conversation, fueled by 3 Goldwassers, it quickly devolves into this maudlin despair.
And Lars confesses what?
He confesses that he is not the true father of his children. It's not Russell's sadness, but it's this profound moment of shared, pervasive European gloom.
And how does Russell handle it?
Like a true cynic.
Mm-hmm.
A man who has seen too much. He just murmurs, "Happy New Year," shifts the drunk man's head slightly off the polished bar so he doesn't, drown, and leaves.
That could have been the grim opening to 1939.
It could have. But the sources give us this vital counterpoint, a momentary flicker of pure, uncompromised human joy.
Right, he cuts over to the Holtzmarkt Square.
The bells start pealing, the year officially turns over, and he's pulled into a circle of dancing, singing revelers in the snow.
He gets a kiss from a Polish girl. A brief, uninhibited moment the sources call a better-than-expected opening to 1939.
It's that desperate seeking of human warmth in the coldest place imaginable that really defines his motivation to stay.
And his primary anchors, the reasons he refuses to leave this dreadful hotel room, are Effie, his German lady friend, and his 11-year-old German son, Paul.
Effie is an actress, and her professional choices, they really reflect the moral atmosphere of the time.
She is appearing in a heavily patriotic musical called Barbarossa. The review he sees describes it as a hymn to national consciousness.
Which is crucial. Even the people closest to Russell are functionally complicit, or at least professionally engaged, with the Nazi machine. It forces him to keep his own political cynicism very, very carefully concealed.
And the need to stay for Effie and Paul to maintain this precarious domestic anchor. That's what makes him vulnerable.
Vulnerable to the first major development, his recruitment. And it doesn't come from London. It comes from Moscow.
The Soviets arrive in the form of Yevgeny Grigorovich Shupkin.
Who visits Russell in his hotel room. And the sources note, Russell recognized him instantly. He remembers a journalism discussion group at the Fifth Congress back in 1924.
That's not just a detail, is it? It's a huge contextual clue.
Oh, it's a signal. It's a signal that Shepkin is a veteran agent and that the Soviets value these long-term connections. The Fifth Congress of the Communist International in 1924 was this crucial moment where the party line hardened.
And the fact that Russell attended, even peripherally.
It means he was already flagged. Flagged as a journalist of the left, perhaps disillusioned but ideologically sympathetic years ago. He's a known quantity, perfect for recruitment.
Shepkin immediately lays out this twofold offer for My Country, the Writers' Union.
The first is propaganda articles for the Soviet newspaper Pravda. These must be about the positive aspects of the Nazi regime. But here's the twist. Not too nice, but credible.
Stressing their good side.
Exactly. And this is the genius of the Soviet approach. Why use Russell, a man known for left-wing leanings, to praise the Nazis? Because his fading reputation as a critical voice acts as a credibility coating.
So if a former communist sympathizer finds something good to say,
it lends immense credibility to the Soviets' own shifting foreign policy. They are priming their own people for an eventual accommodation, which, given the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact later that year, is exactly what they were planning.
And for Russell, the necessity is simple. Money and professional cover.
And then there's the second part of the job. Intelligence gathering. Shepkin tries hard to make it sound benign. Monthly oral reports on what ordinary Germans are thinking.
Like how they react to changes in working conditions, how they might react if war comes.
It's sociological intelligence, essentially. Morale reports. And Shepkin is quick to assure him, nothing military, no armament statistics.
Or those naval plans that Sherlock Holmes is always being asked to recover.
Exactly. It sounds innocent, but Russell, the cynic, recognizes the inherent moral cost of working for any totalitarian regime.
That's when he makes that critical observation, saying, a cynic might say there's not much to choose between you, meaning the Nazis and the Soviets.
And Shchepkin's reaction is fascinating because it's a direct appeal to the lesser evil, which is so often the justification for compromise.
He's exasperated. He snaps back. We have spilled blood, yes, but reluctantly, and in hope of a better future, they enjoy it.
Their idea of progress is a European slave state. That's the justification. That the Soviets spill blood for progress while the Nazis spill it for pleasure. That's what he uses to pull Russell in.
And then comes the money.
An incredible amount of money. The sources estimate it's as much as an ordinary Soviet worker earned over a 5-year plan, delivered fortnightly. To an English journalist scraping by in Berlin, this is immense.
But there's always a threat, isn't there?
Always. The implied threat is the promise of gratitude and influential friends, which Shepkin warns a man like you in a situation like yours is going to need.
It's an offer of protection that's also a trap.
Precisely. It marks him as a foreign asset, placing him instantly on a razor's edge. He now has a lifeline, but that lifeline is controlled by the NKVD.
The Soviet state security. So when Russell later says, God bless the NKVD, he's being deeply cynical.
Oh, absolutely. He knows the NKVD isn't some benign writers' union. It means the consequences for failure aren't just losing a paycheck, but immediate state-sanctioned death.
So if the Soviet deal was about this internal psychological compromise, Russell is immediately thrown against the raw, brutal reality of it all.
Almost instantly. On a trip to Danzig, where he's supposed to be researching, stamp collecting, a perfect journalistic cover.
The lately, it's so brilliantly mundane.
But the scene he stumbles upon is anything but. He visits the train station in the early morning darkness. The lighting is yellow and stark. He sees a long train stretched out. This is the Kindertransport operation.
The atmosphere is just heavy with silent terror. Parents sending their children away to save their lives.
Turning them into orphans to save them. The detail is heartbreaking. Families gathered under yellow lights, men in brown shirts everywhere, and the children themselves just being processed.
The brown shirts are there to enforce the separation, and that's exactly where Russell intervenes.
He uses his foreign ministry press accreditation. He flashes the credentials he's barely earned when a Truppführer, a low-ranking brown shirt with a depressingly porcine face, is shouting at a petite Englishwoman, a Red Cross worker.
And the situation just explodes.
Instantly. The Nazi is drunk on his own minor authority. The Englishwoman shouts back, and the stormtrooper backhands her across the face with enormous force. She's dumped onto the snowy platform.
It's just gratuitous violence. And Russell, seeing a fellow English citizen targeted, he can't stay detached anymore.
He steps in. But he doesn't appeal to morality or humanity. He knows that's pointless.
Instead, he appeals to the Nazis' primary concern, self-preservation and the regime's image.
He warns the Nazi that he risks a court-martial because the Führer doesn't want propaganda victories for the English press, a calculated self-preserving lie.
But a lie that works. It saves the woman and himself.
It's the moment Russell realizes his journalistic credentials, however compromised, carry real weight. He helps her up, tells her to tell the press when she gets back to civilization, and then he just watches the train pull away.
The description of that train leaving is incredibly powerful.
The children crying, pressing their faces against the glass, and then that final sensory detail. Russell hears the sound of a woman, a mother, kneeling in the snow, making a low, keening noise.
A sound which stays with him is the sound of a heart caving in. It's not a scream, it's a total internal collapse.
And that memory is crucial. It galvanizes his willingness to risk everything later. But the immediate result of his intervention is predictable.
Arrest, almost instantly.
He's bundled into a car, and the panic sets in because he realizes Shchepkin's Soviet envelope is sitting on his nightstand in the hotel, a direct link to foreign intelligence.
Far more dangerous than helping a Red Cross worker.
He's taken to an official police station, Hungas, not an SA barracks, which is a slight relief. But the line of authority is already blurred.
Right, he asked the official, who's in charge here, the police or the SA?
And gets the contemptuous look and the suggestion to take a guess. This highlights the creeping politicization of all law enforcement in Nazi Germany.
He's taken downstairs and the description of the cells is chilling.
Brick walls and tiled floors, black up to waist level, white above. Only a splash of blood was needed to exhaust the Nazi palate. It's the architecture of state terror.
After hours of freezing detention, he's interrogated by a man named Tesmer.
And here, his ridiculous journalistic cover story truly saves him. Tesmer is expecting a political firebrand, but Russell provides the most innocuous, tedious cover imaginable, researching the stamp wars.
The German and Polish post offices commemorating centuries-old victories over each other for Philately journals.
It's so unbelievable, such a distraction from reality, that Tesmer just lets him go, realizing the catch was too small to eat. The power of utter banality becomes Russell's shield.
But when he gets back to the hotel,
his dread was justified. Shipkin's envelope has been opened. The Gestapo, or maybe the SA, they already know he's dealing with the Soviets. He's compromised on all sides.
He reads the terms. The money is real. The risk is now absolute.
And his murmured phrase, God bless the NKVD, after realizing the envelope was opened, it's just loaded with dark irony. It's not gratitude, it's resignation.
He's now tethered to a dangerous espionage network, but that network provides the income that keeps him in Germany.
The grim reality just continues back in Berlin, even in the smallest details. He's at a buffet, using a newspaper to shield himself from a man stuffing his face with blood sausage.
And what's in the paper?
New anti-Jewish laws, effective January 1st. Driving automobiles, working in retail, making craft goods, all added to the verboten list.
It's a deliberate, systematic destruction of livelihood. They aren't just taking away rights, they are liquidating assets, making emigration financially impossible while making life unbearable.
And Russell wonders, why make it so hard for the poor bastards to leave?
The sources reveal the goal was twofold, wasn't it?
Yes. First, strip them of any wealth that could be used abroad. And second, encourage flight and then seize whatever property was left behind. The laws were an economic death sentence disguised as a political decree.
So the Soviet deal and the arrest in Danzig, they immediately force Russell into a high-stakes strategy. He realizes his survival depends on having an ironclad, officially sanctioned cover.
Exactly. He has to transform his necessary espionage into legitimate journalism. So he devises 2 new series that will satisfy Shchepkin while providing excellent cover.
The first is Ordinary Germans. This is genius.
It is. Articles focusing on archetypes like the worker, the housewife, the doctor.
It's a perfect match for Shchepkin's request for morale data. He can interview these people, claim it's for his foreign publication, while secretly compiling reports for the Soviets.
And the second series, Germany's Neighbors, covers travel to Poland, Denmark, Holland. This is cover for his required trips outside the Reich for his monthly Soviet meetings.
But the real masterstroke, the move that makes him almost untouchable for a time, comes when he receives that terrifying summons, a meeting with the Gestapo.
This is where he turns vulnerability into armor. He meets Sturmbannführer Gottfried Kleist.
And the sources paint this vivid picture of him, a stout man in denial, his black uniform too tight, but with exquisite handwriting.
That last detail is so chilling, isn't it? The man in charge of political security, who likely signs off on death warrants, maintains this fastidious aesthetic approach to bureaucracy.
And Kleist already knows about the Pravda articles. He says, it has come to our attention.
Russell is caught dead to rights. But he doesn't plead ignorance. He goes on the offensive with this brilliant lie built on Nazi hubris.
He spins the Pravda articles as a strategic concession by the Soviets. He argues that by allowing him to write these pieces, the Soviets are preparing their own people for an accommodating attitude toward German power.
He's basically telling Kleist, your power is so inevitable, even the Soviets are conceding it and prepping their population.
And Kleist, driven by the Nazi regime's insatiable hunger for propaganda victories, he
swallows it, hook, line, and sinker. The Gestapo's desire to see their power validated on the international stage, even by their enemies, outweighs their instinct for counterintelligence. Russell is saved by the Nazis' own vanity.
And then Russell raises the ante. He demands official protection.
He asks Kleist for an official letter confirming his credentials to travel extensively and ask suspicious questions, ostensibly to write those very Pravda articles.
And Kleist gives it to him. A letter of full authority from the Propaganda Ministry and Ministry of the Interior.
This single document becomes Russell's most critical layer of protection. It means that if low-level SA or police officials stop him, he can flash a letter signed by a Gestapo Sturmbannführer.
It's the ultimate ethical paradox. His commitment to the Soviet intelligence services forced him into a deal that gave him protection from the Gestapo, enforced by the Gestapo.
An unsustainable but effective short-term shield.
With this shield, his position is bizarrely solidified, but the political climate is just reaching a fever pitch.
Right, so he seeks out British context. He meets Doug Conway from the British Embassy's commercial department.
And Conway is brutally honest, telling Russell, we're on a knife edge.
He lays out the British dilemma, appeasement versus war. If Hitler consolidates power now, he will be unstoppable by 41 or 42 due to rearmament.
The resources being poured into the German military were exponential.
So Conway argues that from a purely military point of view, if war is inevitable, the sooner the better. Before Hitler reaches that tipping point, it's a cold, hard calculation.
And he also gets a direct warning from British intelligence.
Trelawney Smythe. He knows about Russell's old former membership in the British Communist Party. He's warning him that he's a known quantity to London, too.
Smythe stresses that the Soviets will keep upping the ante until Russell is forced to comply or be betrayed to the Germans.
And that his actions as an Englishman reflect on the rest of the British community in Berlin. A major external moral constraint.
So he's caught between three masters, the NKVD paying him, the Gestapo who think they're using him, and the British who know he's compromised and are watching him.
And this complex political maneuvering, it gives way to the central moral anchor of Russell's time in Germany, the Weisner family.
He begins tutoring the two daughters, Martha and Ruth.
Their father, Dr. Weisner, is a Jewish doctor, now restricted to working only in the poorest areas of Friedrichshain, essentially forced into living and working in what the sources call, like, medieval ghettos.
And Dr. Weisner is clearly under enormous strain, harassed, aging fast.
He reveals his wife is not Jewish, which makes the girls Mischlings or half-Jewish. It gives them a temporary, precarious degree of protection. But the terror of Nazi ideology is palpable.
He shows Russell a page of Der Stürmer,
The notoriously vicious propaganda newspaper. It contains biological nonsense about Aryan women being impregnated by alien semen forever. It's pseudo-scientific terror designed to dehumanize.
And the family is further jeopardized by the son, Albert. He's behaving recklessly.
Saying whatever comes to mind, convinced they are dreaming and will never get visas out of Germany. His anger is understandable, but his loose talk endangers the entire family.
Russell tries to counsel Albert, and this is where we see him using his compromised position for good, in a small way.
A very small way. He forces a kiosk owner who declares we don't serve Jews to serve Albert coffee in a Mohrenkopf by flashing his Gestapo-blessed propaganda ministry accreditation.
It's a small, perfect moment of defiance. He used the Gestapo's shield to provide a tiny moment of dignity to a Jewish boy.
But that small victory is immediately eclipsed by the darkest revelation Russell encounters yet.
He talks to an American journalist, Tyler McKinley. Young, a bit naive, but relentless.
And McKinley is working on a horrifying major story about a proposed new law. He details the infamous Nauer case. This is historical ground zero for state-sanctioned murder.
The boy was blind, missing limbs, a medical idiot. His father wrote to Hitler requesting the boy be killed, a mercy killing.
And Hitler gave permission.
But here's where the horror just expands exponentially.
McKinley explains that this single case is being used as the template for a massive state-funded program. He suggests they're targeting, perhaps, 100,000 expendable children, justifying it as cutting short suffering or sparing parents the problem. The scale of that leap from one compassionate exception to a systematic elimination of 100,000, that's the chilling mark of bureaucratic evil.
McKinley is scrambling to prove that this program is already in motion, and this discussion is the first concrete, documented evidence Russell encounters of the Nazi plan to eliminate the unworthy of life.
Which we now know historically as the lead-up to the T4 euthanasia program.
One of the earliest instances of formalized mass murder. It provided the technology, personnel, and administrative blueprint for the later industrial scale of the Holocaust. McKinley was looking for proof of that bureaucratic step.
The danger surrounding this story becomes terrifyingly real almost immediately. Russell returns from his first successful Soviet meeting in Krakow to hear the news. Tyler McKinley is dead.
The official verdict: suicide. He supposedly threw himself in front of a train at Zoo's station. But the concierge, Frau Heidegger, she mentions the police. The Kripo were frustrated. They were searching for hours for a note.
And that detail is important. The Kripo deals with ordinary crime. They expect a suicide note. Russell immediately believes it was murder, precisely because the documents McKinley was working on, the evidence he desperately needed, are missing.
If it were suicide, why wouldn't he have left the papers?
Exactly. Russell knows the pattern. This isn't just a political murder, it's a cover-up. The police frustration confirms that Gestapo has already been through the room, looking not for a suicide note, but for the documents.
Russell endures this perfunctory interview with Criminal Inspector Ohm and a Gestapo man. They're just finalizing the paperwork.
And this process is accelerated by the arrival of Eleanor McKinley, Tyler's sister.
She flies in on one of the new American Clipper flying boats.
Eleanor is described as thin and severe, and she's not interested in vengeance. She views her brother's dangerous work as a pretty effective way of committing suicide. She just wants to get his body home.
She signs papers waiving the family's right to an inquest and quickly accepts the suicide verdict.
This is a huge tactical benefit for the Gestapo, and Russell realizes it's his only chance. With the family officially closing the case, the Gestapo has no reason to continue searching for the missing documents.
Which Russell believes McKinley sent to himself via post restante, general delivery, for safety.
So Russell has to become an operative himself. He needs a perfect forgery. He turns to Zemsky, a Silesian communist photographer with connections to the Passapparat, the underground network for forged passports.
And Zemsky creates a flawless false passport using McKinley's photo.
The tension during the retrieval scene is palpable. At the Heiligeiststrasse post office, Russell's heart is pounding. He presents the forged passport and claims the thick manila envelope, scrawling an approximation of McKinley's signature.
The walkout is described as endless. He's holding a fuse that could blow up his entire life.
He finds a secluded hill overlooking Berlin's principal home for the mentally ill, the Herzberg Asylum. The name itself is apt, Heart Mountain Asylum.
The site where he opens the documents of mass murder targeting the vulnerable.
And what he finds is a bureaucratic roadmap to annihilation. A 1934 article, Alive Yet Dead. The story about the farmer who shot his mentally handicapped son, urging authorities to find a legal way to kill defective infants.
Then comes the horrifying ideological justification. An article by Carl Knabb advocating for the painless killing of spiritual ruins and idiots on the lowest level.
And here's the clinical economic language of fascism. These people are described as simply cost-occasioning ballast, justifiable for national self-preservatory finance policy.
Murder justified by perceived economic inefficiency.
But the clinching, undeniable evidence, the smoking gun, is at the bottom. A memorandum by Dr. Theodor Morell, Hitler's quack. Morell was tasked with drafting a law on the destruction of life unworthy of life.
This is the direct administrative precursor to the T4 program.
The memorandum lays out the eligible groups. Anyone suffering from mental or physical malformation requiring long-term care or, tellingly, arousing horror in other people.
This is the story journalists dream of. Printing this would save countless lives, make Russell famous.
But he knows the cost is his life, Effie's life, Paul's life, the Warner's chances of escape. So what's the ultimate choice?
Preservation over publication.
He decides the physical, undeniable evidence, the bureaucratic proof, must be preserved and removed from the Reich, regardless of who writes the story later. He puts the documents in the post restante under his own name, hoping to retrieve them when he inevitably has to flee.
The evidence is secured, but at the cost of immediate silence. And while Russell is ensuring the safety of McKinley's terrible evidence, tragedy strikes the Weisner family.
It pulls Russell into an even deeper moral obligation. Dr. Wiesner is arrested by the Gestapo in the middle of the night and taken to Sachsenhausen camp.
The charge is a classic piece of Nazi legal fiction, allegedly performing an abortion on a 17-year-old German girl.
His wife, Eva, insists he would never do this, but under the new laws, this charge carries a 25-year sentence, if he lives that long.
Russell is filled with useless rage, but he immediately tries to leverage his compromised network. He contacts Jens, his sister's husband, a Nazi civil servant who owes Russell a deep favor.
A critically personal favor. Russell had covered up Zara's attempt at an abortion in England years prior. Jens investigates, but quickly confirms Weisner is out of luck. He won't be back.
And the Gestapo officer tells Russell that his money, the tutoring fees, is gone. The state seizing assets.
Driven by responsibility, Russell decides on a spectacularly dangerous course of action. He visits Sachsenhausen concentration camp.
He uses the pretext of money owed for the lessons, relying again on his Gestapo accreditation. The sources note his cynical realization that car ownership, he'd recently bought a small Hanomag, made the concentration camp so accessible.
A chilling reminder these atrocities were occurring in full view, just a short drive from Berlin.
The scene at the camp is harrowing. At the gate, a guard deliberately crumples Eva Weisner's letter to her husband.
An immediate display of dehumanizing cruelty. Inside, Russell sees hundreds of prisoners bare-armed and freezing.
When Weisner is finally pushed into the room, he's unrecognizable.
Hunched over, covered in cuts and bruises, one eye swollen shut. His right hand is bandaged. The sources describe him looking like he'd been kicked in the genitals many, many times. Deliberate, focused torture.
And Weisner's words just break Russell's heart. He confesses, "I am ashamed to say it, but I thought Albert was exaggerating about this place, that he had been less than a menschman."
He apologizes to Russell for doubting his son's warnings. This is the breaking point. Weisner, the educated man, believed the rhetoric that the camps were only for true enemies, not ordinary citizens.
Seeing his broken state hardens Russell's resolve completely. He promises Weisner he will move heaven and earth to get his family out.
And the final silent symbol of this visit is Russell seeing the crumpled ball of Eva's letter lying discarded in the snow outside the gatehouse.
So now Russell acts, immediately, leveraging his double life with ruthless efficiency.
He orchestrates two simultaneous high-risk deals, using the naval secrets he knows he can acquire.
First, the Soviet deal. He contacts Shepkin's agent, Irina Borskaya, and offers to take naval secrets out of Kiel if they first extract Albert Weisner.
Albert is now a fugitive. As an anti-Nazi militant, he's a high-value extraction target for the Soviets.
Second, the British deal. He goes to Trelawney Smythe and offers him the same naval plans if Smythe can secure a British entry visa for Eva Weisner,
who had been refused because she scored an 8 on an old 1919 Spartacus dossier, marking her as a communist risk.
Let's unpack that. She's being targeted by the Nazis for being Jewish and blocked by the British for being potentially communist 20 years later.
Exactly. Russell is operating in the space between these two ideological fears. He uses the urgency of military intelligence to force both sides to bypass their own rules for a single family. And both men agree.
Eva Weisner receives her British entry visa by special courier.
Before their exit, Eva gives Russell the family's remaining wealth. It's not cash. It's a large soft-covered book called Achievements of the Third Reich, the First 5 Years, a sticker book.
The irony is astounding. They're using a book celebrating Nazi power as the vehicle for their escape funds.
Behind each sticker is a rare, valuable stamp, the family's hidden fortune.
Russell drives Eva and the two daughters to Zoo Station. He bribes the car attendant with a massive 500 Reichsmarks to look after them on the train, and Eva reveals a final, painful twist as they part.
Albert is heading for Palestine, not England. This confirms the desperate, diverging paths of the Jewish diaspora. The mother and daughters are bound for Britain. The son, the radical, is bound for a conflict zone, determined to fight.
With the family in transit, Russell begins the final, most dangerous phase, fulfilling his promises. First, Albert's extraction.
He drives the 18-year-old Albert to Görlitz, near the Czech border. Albert, who has already resisted the Gestapo, is terrified. He reveals he is carrying a Luger, preferring a blaze of gunfire to returning to a camp.
The rendezvous is classic tradecraft. Albert waits in the station buffet wearing working men's clothes and a blue scarf. The contact will ask where the left luggage is.
And Albert must reply with the coded phrase, "Yes, But it's easier to show you than explain, and walk out with him.
Russell waits anxiously, imagining the worst.
But the system works. Albert walks out with a shortish man in his 40s, with a red nose, a perfectly innocuous figure. They climb into a truck loaded with timber. Albert is safe. The Soviet side fulfilled their end of the bargain.
Now for the British and Soviet side. Collecting the naval intelligence, Russell travels to Kiel, his cover, finishing his ordinary German series on sailors.
The target is naval dispositions, highly classified military secrets. The contact is in the Germania bar, a brothel, a perfect draw point.
Russell meets Jelly, a woman his age who directs him upstairs. The contact hands over more than 30 sheets of text and diagrams, copied onto the thinnest available paper.
The contact confirms this is not the original, and there is only one other copy for your successor, confirming the disposable nature of espionage assets.
Russell secures the plans, but his exit is almost fatally compromised.
Nearly discovered by a drunken stormtrooper urinating in the alley inches from his hiding spot. The threat is often not calculated, but crude and immediate.
He manages to reach his Hanomag, but is momentarily trapped by a group of stormtroopers treating it as a practical joke, hemming him in.
He successfully hides the naval plans in the lining of a model ship of the Coronation, a locomotive. He deposits the ship in the zoo station left luggage. He's held up his end of the bargain.
His final step is taking the train to Prague to hand over McKinley's euthanasia papers to Borskaya, the Soviet agent. He's carrying the false-bottom suitcase with the damning evidence.
And this is the true razor's edge. At the German border crossing, he's intercepted by Gestapo criminal assistant Ashrel. Ashrel knows he's coming and knows exactly what to look for, a hidden compartment.
Russell realizes with horrifying clarity that the Soviets have set him up. Borskaya must have discovered the hidden compartment and betrayed him. But why?
Multiple motives, all rooted in cynicism. Perhaps they discovered the euthanasia documents and decided they were too dangerous. More likely, they used him as a pawn. By setting him up, they confirmed to the Gestapo that Russell is now a controllable, double-crossed asset useful for feeding them disinformation.
Ashrel asks how to open the hidden compartment. Russell, thinking on his feet, denies knowing it exists. He says he bought the suitcase yesterday from a Jew in Prague. The bastard probably used it to smuggle valuables out of the Reich.
An instantly believable lie to the Nazi mindset. But the thing that truly saves Russell is Kleiss's letter of accreditation, the very document he acquired months earlier.
Ashrel, seeing the Gestapo letter and hearing the lie, realizes the trap. He says, the Reds have tried to set you up, and respecting the propaganda ministry's credentials lets Russell go.
And he sums up Russell's existence perfectly. It seems we are all victims of the same plot. He even provides him with a replacement confiscated Jewish suitcase.
As Russell walks out, a customs official stops him.
Silently positioning himself to avoid watchers, Russell hands him a clip of Swiss francs, a wedding present, and walks free. A miraculous temporary reprieve thanks to luck and the ultimate cynicism of the Nazi state.
What an exhausting, morally complex journey through just 2 months of early 1939. Russell started the year reading a feature on German pets.
And ended it trading Nazi naval dispositions for a Jewish mother's safety. His life was utterly transformed by the choices he made.
Accepting the Soviet offers, intervening in the Kindertransport, securing the terrible truth discovered by McKinley.
His story illustrates that razor-thin margin between compliance and catastrophe. It underscores the complex web of moral deals that were necessary just to survive or, more importantly, to save others.
He went from reluctantly writing positive articles about the regime's achievements to using that very sticker book to smuggle out a family's wealth.
And the deep dive into the documents surrounding the destruction of life unworthy of life reveals a horrifying insight. The bureaucracy of murder was already being planned meticulously long before the war began.
Dr. Morell's memorandum proves the elimination of life unworthy of life was not an accidental byproduct of war, but a calculated state-sanctioned policy of eliminating cost-occasioning ballast.
The core conflict Russell internalized, the lesson he imparts to his son Paul, was profound. What does dying for your country achieve? Often, nothing. Living for your country, you get the chance to make it better.
For Russell, living meant gathering information, making deals with spies and Gestapo officers, and using his precarious, compromised position to help those facing annihilation.
So, what does this all mean for you, the learner? Russell couldn't risk telling the full story of the Kindertransport or the euthanasia plot. He chose silence, but he risked everything to ensure the evidence, the undeniable proof of the Nazis' intentions, made it out of the Reich.
It forces us to ask a difficult, modern journalistic question. When facing overwhelming ideological evil, is the act of preserving the evidence for a future reckoning, ensuring the truth survives, ultimately more valuable than the immediate but perhaps fatal act of speaking out?
Russell chose to be the custodian of the truth, knowing the truth itself would eventually speak. He left Berlin, leaving the evidence behind in a locker, secured but waiting. It raises one final provocative thought. Was Russell's greatest act of heroism not what he reported, but what he painstakingly ensured could be reported by someone else sometime later when the world was finally ready to listen? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.